So the after show, I really want to talk about the after show because, one of the things that, I really grabbed onto, social media wise was just the amazing influence that this new show Chosen is having, in social media circles. In that, how did this after show start?
Yeah, so the key thing to know is that I have no qualms about stealing good ideas. I put no burden on myself to be the generator of good ideas. That is not an ego issue for me at all. I want someone else to figure out how to run the touchdown play, and then I'll run the touchdown play. And so one of the things that I enjoy consuming in the last 5 or 6 years have come up either podcasts or television shows that discuss and break down and evaluate prestige television shows or movies or things like that. There's a whole, if you love a television show that's out there, there's a podcast or something dedicated to going through that show episode by episode, connecting it, talking about it, etc. So on social media, I started to see advertised to me very heavily because someone put in advertising dollars and I popped up as one of their people that'd be interested. A relatively new television show called The Chosen, which is not available it's not broadcasting on any channel, but it's available online for streaming and by DVDs. And it's a show that I really didn't know very well, didn't know anything about it, but it's a show that is about Jesus' life. And unlike a lot of quote unquote shows about Jesus, it doesn't tell the story from the nativity to the resurrection. It instead kind of immerses in the world of Jesus and beginning with the beginning of his public ministry. The end of season 1, and there's only one season so far. Well, I don't want to ruin it, but it's not the cross. And so I looked at this, and it sounded interesting, and then I was like, well, to also back up, one of the ways that we teach discipleship at our church is a life that's balanced of practices of worship and prayer, giving, serving, learning, and playing, having fun, having holy and special fun. And so we were making sure, are we doing every aspect of our discipleship in an online context as well? And the last thing was fun. Are we having fun online? And I thought this would be fun. It'd be fun to watch this show together as members of our church. And then let's recreate what I've seen elsewhere be a lot of fun, which is the breakdown shows. So let's have the Chosen after show. And we came up with a million different names for what do we call the Chosen discussion show, but that's what the Chosen after show was. And those shows usually have a co-host, and so I have a number of amazing colleagues, and the one who I felt like would be most interested in doing this with me was Dr. Zhenya. And so she jumped in. She also has the benefit of being a New Testament PhD, and I have a pop culture PhD, so that was a good balance of expertise. And so we just started doing it. We met via a Zoom, being a Zoom meeting together. So we were talking to each other, and we're broadcasting it live on Facebook. And people would tune in and ask questions, and we would chat with them while we're doing the show. And it was a way of coming together, having a little bit of fun, and trying to engage. And so that was the idea, the impetus behind it. And then we ran out of Chosen episodes. There's only 8. So then now we're doing other things. So we just did the 2014 movie Noah, starring Russell Crowe, which is a very interesting adaptation of the Noah story and gave us a lot to talk about. And now we're just kind of moving through biblical television and movie culture. And the numbers aren't huge. It's not 1,000 people watching the Chosen After Show live with us, but the people that do really engage it lives online and continues to get more views and engagement over time. So people obviously are getting some value out of it. And again, it's that doing something online, not just sharing something on social media, not just saying something on social media, but actually being together in that space, bringing the social, right? People kind of emphasize on the media part of social media. We're emphasizing the social part. We're being together. And it's been a lot of fun.
So what would you say to churches that are like starting new projects, and they've done it for a couple of weeks, and then they're starting to see a downtick in the people that are actually engaging and actually watching, like somebody that starts at Bedtime Stories and Prayer, and when the pandemic started, it was like 20, 30 people joining you for Bedtime Stories and Prayer, but now that we're like 6, 7 months in, I don't even know where we are anymore, and you're starting to see 2, 3.
Yeah.
What advice would you offer churches in that?
Well, one of the things that's really important, and this is coming from a very large church in our annual conference, is do not disparage the importance of ministry to the ones and the twos and the threes. Mm-hmm. I think that is one of the things that even particularly churches that had gotten to a deep programming mindset are now reconnecting with, is the importance of ministry and taking some of those self-described things of success off. I think it's more important to keep trying. The number one thing that I talk to my family about, the number one thing I talk to my direct report staff about, is the concept of resilience. And there's only one guaranteed method of success, and that's to keep trying. Mm-hmm. That's to keep trying. And so if you're doing, let's say another thing I also believe very strongly is that there is, not everything is meant to last forever. Mm-hmm. There is a good sunset date on things. I do not plan on doing after show discussions for the next 80 years. And if I only did it for 79, then it wasn't successful. Right. So you did an amazing ministry online, and it ran its course for 4 months and really engaged folks, and then it tailed off. Awesome. Declare success and get out of there. As long as you do something else. Right? Don't stop doing things. Now, what's the next thing? What's this moment's thing? What are we doing now? What's creative now? And don't put the burden on yourself to figure that out. Go steal an idea. Do the Chosen after show, right? Yeah. Rock that one for a little while. Go through other churches. Figure out what they're doing. Don't put the burden on yourself to come up with the world's most creative idea. And if you get one, that's amazing. What a blessing. So I would say, I don't know what the right number is for everybody, but when things hit their diminishing returns, declare success, get out and do something new that's excited you. Mm-hmm. Don't do one thing that you wouldn't tune into, right? If you wouldn't want it, don't assume anyone else would. So all of those different principles, I think, give me a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. And I think permission particularly to say, hey, that was great. Let's try something else. Let's keep this fresh. Mm-hmm. So the last thing I'll say is everyone's got decreasing numbers right now. Right. Because we're settling into, I think the better way to think of it is that we had artificially high numbers for a while because in the initial moment of transition, people were clinging to the familiar, and that included their church community and the regular rhythms of engagement. I think what is now more clear is we're settling into this medium time in between now and a vaccine, however long away that is. It's going to be different. Right. And so don't compare the needs of March to the needs of July. Also, it's July and August. I don't know what your church's attendance in July and August usually is. Mine is usually an opportunity to get good at preaching because you're talking to the choir. Yeah. And that's about it.
For sure.
So, I mean, it's July, man. Like, be easy on yourself. I mean, be kind to yourself. It's July. We're getting through this together. So that's 8 different thoughts, but hopefully there's one good one in there.
Do you ever wonder if we're doing too much online, that we're spreading ourselves too thin?
I would ask every person that individually. I think a really good question about that is what gives you energy. Uh-huh. That would probably be a better way to do it. Uh-huh. I really love online discipleship content. I really love online discipleship meetings. I really love online teaching, and so I don't think I'm doing too much because I love it. There's other things I don't love, and I think that's worth investigating into why. Mm-hmm. Because I think we subconsciously and in our spirit are fed by things that have the most impact. Mm-hmm. So rather than arbitrarily set a number of too much or not enough, I would say, what's giving you life? Mm-hmm. What is giving your congregation life? What's meeting the needs in your mission field? Because you're never going to say, like, you know what? We're really blowing and going in our mission field right now, but it's too much. Like, you would never feel that way because it self-feeds, right? What you may be feeling is, I'm doing too much of stuff that's not me feeding me or anybody else.
Right.
Which is okay to admit, right? Because how were you to know? You're iterating on the fly.
For sure.
Right? So feel that and let that be motivation and permission to go give you the thing that does give you life. The thing that you're excited about, because that will make someone else excited too.
Awesome. So talking specifically about the after show and just about creating, new content and being creative and using your imagination with how you're using social media, how did y'all gauge the after show's success?
Yeah. So that's a really interesting question because immediately the question we want to ask is numbers. Well, did the numbers dictate success? And I have no idea what the numbers should be on an online Facebook talk show about a Jesus show that's not available on television. I don't know what the numbers should be. So I gauge it right now by, is it meaningful? Is there real meaning coming out of it? You know, we end each episode of that talking, we did segments, because that's a good idea I stole from someone else. And the segment was That'll Preach and Wow. And was there still something that would preach at the end of each one we could point to? Was there something that still made you say, wow? Was there something I still enjoyed? Did I still like doing this? And I did. And so did Jinya. And so did the people that were a part of it. And it didn't require a massive amount of pre-work. And so it was like, let's keep going. I still have energy for this. I'm still engaging it. People are still engaging with it. And I think that's a good harbinger of success, because a better word for success, maybe a better question, or a better way to word the question than was it successful is, was it still alive? Was it still alive, or had it died? And when we looked at it, it wasn't dead. It didn't feel dead. It didn't look dead. It didn't smell dead. And so it was alive. So let it continue. So I think that's more how we're judging things right now. And is it alive or is it dead? Because numbers are meaningless. Like, I mean, I don't have anything to compare them to. They're only useful in comparing to themselves. And so I have no idea what the right number of chosen views should be. But I know what alive feels like. And I know what ministry feels like. And I know what life change feels like. And I know what discipleship feels like. And all of that seemed to be in play.
Right. So what would you say to churches that are just like, well, this is just temporary? You know, we just got to be on this Facebook thing, this YouTube thing, just until we can get back in the building. What would you say to churches that are, you know, engaging in that kind of thought process?
Yeah, what's the Dr. Phil question? The Dr. Phil question? How's that working out for you? That's the question I would ask. How's that working out for you?
It's kind of the idea, you know, doing the same thing and expecting different things to come out of the same things.
Yeah, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
How's that gone?
Howard, you've talked about several times in this time together about creating digital spaces and how important that is. How would you express the vital importance of that to other churches in our conference? I mean, why are you investing in that? Why is that important to the goal of your church? Yeah,
because I'm in love with ministry. I'm in love with connecting with people. I think a lot of the boundaries that we set up aside, what can and will be possible, are really arbitrary. And there's this idea, when you become a church planter, there's this idea called affinity. And for those of you who may remember, I've had an experience of trying to be a church planter and going through some of that training. And affinity is basically, who are the people that get you and that you get? You know, they're just like, y'all get each other. You're just, maybe it's your economic background, your social background, your shared history, etc. You have an affinity toward each other.
For sure.
And as a church, as an individual, as a leader, etc. And right now, your affinity for, if you've only done ministry in a physical space, has been captured by geography. And that's being released. You're being released. And so you could be somewhere like let's limit the imagination to a place that might see its congregation as being most separated from technology. Well, there's going to be people exactly like your mission field that are so ready to be fed and connected by the good news of Jesus Christ by the way you understand it, and they don't live anywhere near you. They live very far away from you. They could be in a community just like yours in Missouri, or a community just like yours in Nebraska, Oklahoma, somewhere else in Texas, etc. And they're never going to be reached by me. I'm like the last thing they're going to connect with. And so is my church, because our contexts are just totally different.
Right.
And you're such good news to them, your church, your way of being, your people. And they may never come to your church. You may be like that church in Michigan was for me, a waypoint of discipleship and connection and an encounter with the good news that will never register in any in-person giving or seating or anything like that. But you did ministry, you did discipleship, you evangelized, and Christ is smiling upon that incredibly. And so you have a tool for ministry that, if you're only in what you intimated in that question a little bit was, well, ultimately at the end of the day, in person butts and seats are what matters the most. And I push back on that and say what matters the most is is new people finding love in Christ and new people having transformed lives and being evangelized and discipled. And of course, you believe that too. And it's just for too long, we immediately measured that and someday they come and sit down here. And
in this new identity, it doesn't really matter if they come and sit down in our, historic pews and our historic sanctuary.
Yeah. And by the way, a byproduct of being so alive and on fire with the gospel and seeking out new people in a new way, the byproduct of that is going to be seats filled. Because I remember when I first got a job on staff at a church, I was talking to a mentor of mine who was a pastor working at another church, and I told him I got a job. I'm a layperson. I get to go work on staff at this church. And my mentor pastor said about that other church, "Oh, the bread's baking in there." He said, "The bread's baking in there. Like, people can smell it. The bread's baking in there. It's got the good smell on it of just discipleship and life on fire. The bread's baking in there." And so if you're reaching out and making disciples and connecting people with the good news, whether they're around you or not, because that's your affinity and that's your God-given gift, the bread's baking in your place. And the byproduct of that is going to be some of those traditional hallmarks of ministry. I guarantee it. But in the meantime, you're going to be doing what you've been called to do as leaders. So that's why I think it's worth investing in.
All right. Well, Lance, we appreciate you joining us today. And those of y'all in the local church, we invite you to share your stories with us of tools and technologies that you're using in your local church. And we invite you to reach out to us so that we may promo some of the stuff that you're doing. You can do that by emailing Vance Morton at the email that is provided for you on the screen, vancemorton@ctcumc.org. And you can also visit our website at ctcumc.org to share your stories with us of tools and technologies that you're using in your local church and how we can share with the other local churches and how we can make disciples for Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world together. Thanks for joining us.